In the heart of a faraway Igbo kingdom, a wealthy prince named Chibuzor was restless. Though blessed with wealth, power, and good looks, Chibuzor felt empty. He longed for love, true love, not one that came wrapped in gold or seduced by titles. In his kingdom, maidens would fawn over him, not for his heart, but for the life of luxury he promised. So, one night, Prince Chibuzor made a bold decision. He would leave his palace, disguise himself as a poor farmer, and travel to a distant village. There, away from the weight of his name, he would find the woman destined to love him for who he was. His journey led him to Abodo, a small village known more for its farming fields than for wealth or fame. Disguised in ragged clothes, Chibuzor presented himself as a struggling farmer, barely making ends meet. His hands, once soft from palace life, were now hardened by the earth he toiled on. But despite his humble appearance, the maidens of Abodo avoided him. To them, Chibuzor was nothing more than a poor man with no future, no prospects. They whispered and giggled when he passed, their disdain heavy in the air. The only thing he carried was his charm, but in this village, charm wasn't enough. Among them, there was one who noticed him, a maiden who herself had been cast aside by her people. Nneka was an outcast. Villagers whispered that she carried bad luck, that her mere presence brought misfortune. Orphaned as a child, she had grown up alone, isolated from others, her days spent working in the fields or caring for the elderly. Despite the cruel labels placed on her, Nneka had a heart overflowing with kindness. She never mocked, never judged. One evening, Chibuzor collapsed in exhaustion by the stream, his feet blistered from walking all day in search of food. It was Nneka who found him. Without hesitation, she knelt beside him, offering him water and a small loaf of yam bread she had baked earlier. "You must be tired," she said softly, her voice like a balm to his aching soul. He looked at her, surprised. Where others had shown contempt, she showed kindness. Where others had seen only a poor man, she saw someone in need. Days turned into weeks, and Chibuzor found himself drawn to Nneka. Her gentleness, her resilience, the way she laughed despite the cruelty of the villagers, it all tugged at his heart. Yet, Nneka never asked for anything. She never questioned his past, his lack of wealth, or why he was so different from the other men in the village. She simply cared, and that was enough for Chibuzor. But there was a tension building in the kingdom. A grand announcement spread like wildfire: Prince Chibuzor of the biggest Igbo kingdom was seeking a bride. Maidens from all neighboring kingdoms were invited to the palace for the selection. The news reached even the small village of Abodo, and the excitement was electric. Every maiden in the village began preparing, hoping to catch the eye of the mysterious prince they had never seen. Little did they know, the very prince they were clamoring for was the poor farmer they had scorned. Chibuzor watched the chaos unfold, knowing his time of pretending was almost up. He had seen their true hearts, the way their kindness was measured by wealth. All except Nneka. She alone had seen him, truly seen him, and he could feel his heart pulling him closer to her. But would she feel the same if she knew who he truly was? Would the pressure of becoming queen crush the simple, loving girl he had come to adore? As the day of the grand selection approached, the tension in the village grew unbearable. Maidens dressed in their finest clothes, traveling to the kingdom with high hopes. Nneka, however, stayed behind, knowing her place wasn't among royalty. Her plain clothes, simple life, and the cruel gossip about her would never allow her to dream that high. But Chibuzor had a different plan. He had made up his mind. The palace courtyard was filled with dazzling beauty, maidens in vibrant attire, all hoping to be the chosen bride. But when Prince Chibuzor stepped forward in his royal robes, revealing his true identity, gasps filled the air. He scanned the crowd, his heart steady with the decision he had already made. As Prince Chibuzor stood tall in his royal robes, his sharp eyes swept across the sea of maidens. Faces that had once been cold and dismissive now looked up at him with newfound awe and desire. He could feel the weight of their gazes, the sudden change in the way they saw him now that they knew his true identity. But he had long grown tired of this. His heart pounded in his chest as he searched for Nneka, knowing she wasn't there. He knew she hadn't bothered to make the journey, convinced that no prince would ever look her way. But that was exactly why he wanted her, because Nneka had seen him, the real him, when he was nothing but a struggling farmer in rags. She had given him the gift of her heart without asking for anything in return. "Are you ready, Your Highness?" the royal herald asked, waiting for Chibuzor to signal the start of the bride selection. Chibuzor turned to him, his expression unreadable. "No," he said, his voice firm but low. "I am not ready yet." The herald frowned in confusion, but Chibuzor was already walking away. Whispers rippled through the crowd of noblemen and courtiers, all unsure of what was happening. The maidens who had spent hours adorning themselves were left staring in disbelief as Chibuzor made his way out of the palace gates, his royal guards trailing behind him, equally perplexed. Nneka sat under the shade of an old irako tree, gazing out over the fields, her heart heavy with the quiet sadness she had grown accustomed to. The entire village was buzzing with excitement about the selection ceremony, but she had no part in it. She belonged to the earth, to the solitude that the villagers had imposed on her. No prince would ever look her way, and that was a truth. Suddenly, she heard the sound of horses approaching, the thundering of hooves echoing in the distance. Confused, she stood up, brushing the dust from her simple wrapper. As the figures grew closer, her heart began to race. There, at the front of the group, was Chibuzor, the farmer she had helped months ago, the man who had quietly worked the land and shared humble meals with her. But something was different. He was no longer dressed in the worn-out clothes of a poor farmer. His skin gleamed in the light, his royal robes flowing behind him like a river of fine silk. Her breath caught in her throat. Could it be? No, it couldn't. "Chibuzor," she whispered, her voice barely audible as he approached. He stopped in front of her, dismounting from his horse with a grace she had never seen before. His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. "I am Prince Chibuzor," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of the truth he had kept hidden. "I came to Abodo not to find a farmer's life, but to find a heart that is pure. And I found you, Nneka." Her heart slammed against her chest as the words sank in. "Prince Chibuzor? How could this be?" She took a step back, shaking her head in disbelief. "But I don't understand. Why would a prince?" "Because you showed me kindness when no one else would," Chibuzor said, stepping closer. "You didn't care about wealth or titles. You cared about me when I had nothing to offer." Tears welled up in Nneka's eyes, but she turned away, her emotions swirling in confusion. "But I am no one. I am an outcast. I have nothing to give you, Chibuzor. You deserve a queen, someone who—" "You are my queen, Nneka," he interrupted, his voice firm but filled with warmth. "I don't need anyone else. The heart you've given me is worth more than any crown." Nneka's legs grew weak as she sank to the ground, overwhelmed by the weight of his words. How could this be happening? The villagers had always treated her like she was cursed, like she brought misfortune to everyone around her. But here, standing before her, was a prince who saw her, who valued her. Just as she was about to respond, the sound of footsteps broke the silence. Nneka turned to see the villagers gathering at a distance, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. Whispers floated in the air, eyes widening as they realized that the man they had scorned as a mere farmer was actually their prince. And the woman they had cast out as bad luck was now standing beside him. "Nneka, the queen," one of the women muttered in disbelief, her voice laced with the same disdain she had always held. Tension filled the air as the crowd grew, their judgmental stares boring into Nneka. Doubt crept into her heart, threatening to crush the happiness she had briefly felt. Could she really be a queen? Would these people ever accept her? Chibuzor saw the fear in her eyes and reached for her hand, pulling her gently to her feet. Nneka, he said, his voice strong. You are more than what they say. You are strong, you are kind, and you are worthy. I don't care what they think. The villagers watched, stunned, as Chibuzor turned to face them. His voice rang out, clear and powerful. This woman, he said, gesturing toward Nneka, is the future queen of this kingdom. She has shown more heart and courage than any of you ever could. You will respect her. The villagers stood frozen, their whispers fading as they realized the power of the man standing before them. But even as Chibuzor's words hung in the air, a new question burned in Nneka's mind, one she dared not voice but could not ignore. Would the kingdom, the powerful kingdom waiting for a bride, accept a queen with no status, no wealth, and a past filled with whispers of bad luck? The silence from the villagers lingered, thick and heavy. Nneka stood there, her hand in Chibuzor, feeling the weight of the moment crushing her. She was no queen. She had no royal blood, no fine clothes, no family of noble status. All she had ever known was isolation, poverty, and the whispers that she brought misfortune. She glanced at Chibuzor, whose eyes were steady on hers, filled with a love she hadn't thought possible. But doubt still clung to her heart like a shadow. I'm not worthy of this, Nneka whispered, her voice trembling. The kingdom, they'll never accept me. How can I stand by your side as queen when I've been nothing but an outcast? Chibuzor shook his head, stepping closer to her, his hand tightening around hers. You've already shown me more strength and grace than any of the maidens in my kingdom. You, Nneka, are the only one who saw me for who I was, not for what I had. That's the kind of queen this kingdom needs, someone with a pure heart, someone who can look past titles and wealth. Tears filled her eyes as she listened to his words, her heart torn between disbelief and the desire to believe him. But even as she stood there, the memory of the villagers' cruel words, their years of rejection, gnawed at her spirit. The villagers shifted uneasily, still unsure of what to make of this sudden turn of events. One of the elders, a stern-faced man named Okonkwo, stepped forward, his voice cautious. Your Highness, he began, addressing Chibuzor, with all due respect, she is not of royal blood. Nneka has been an outcast in this village for reasons that go beyond her control. We've long believed that she carries bad luck. To make her queen. Chibuzor's eyes flashed with anger, but before he could respond, Nneka spoke up. Her voice was soft, but there was a strength behind it that surprised even her. Maybe they're right, she said, looking up at Chibuzor. I've been called bad luck for so long, I started to believe it. But I know who I am now. I know my heart. I don't want to be a queen if it means forcing a kingdom to accept me when I've never been accepted anywhere else. Chibuzor turned to her, his face softening. Nneka, it's not about forcing them. It's about showing them that their beliefs about you were wrong. That you're more than the labels they've given you. Nneka shook her head, a sad smile tugging at her lips. But it's not just about me, Chibuzor. It's about your kingdom, your people. They deserve a queen who can lead them, someone who has their respect. The tension between them hung in the air, thick and suffocating, but Chibuzor wasn't ready to give up. He turned back to the villagers, his voice ringing out with authority. You say Nneka brings bad luck, but tell me, what proof do you have? Has she ever caused you harm? Has she ever done anything but show kindness and care? The villagers murmured amongst themselves, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Okonkwo stepped forward again, his expression uneasy. We've had misfortunes in this village, Your Highness. Crops that failed, sickness that spread. It's been our belief that belief is wrong. Chibuzor interrupted, his voice strong and unwavering. Nneka is not bad luck. The only thing she has brought is kindness, to me and to all of you. You blame her for things that were never her fault. Nneka's heart raced as she watched him defend her, but still, doubt lingered. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, an old woman, bent with age, pushed through the crowd. It was Mama Ozioma, one of the village's oldest and wisest elders. Her face was wrinkled with time, but her eyes were sharp, piercing the crowd as she hobbled forward. Enough! Mama Ozioma's voice cracked like thunder, silencing the villagers. She pointed a gnarled finger at Nneka, her gaze stern. You all have spoken of bad luck, but I see none here. What I see is a heart of gold, a girl who has cared for the sick and the elderly without asking for anything in return. The villagers shifted, uncomfortable under Mama Osioma's sharp gaze. You blamed her for your troubles because you needed someone to blame, the old woman continued, her voice softer now but no less firm. But bad luck is not something you can pin on a person. Nneka has done nothing but good in this village, and you have treated her unfairly. Chibuzor turned to Nneka, his eyes filled with gratitude, but Nneka was still trembling. But what if they're right, she whispered. What if being with me brings you bad luck? Chibuzor took her hand in both of his voice steady. Nneka, the only bad luck I've ever known was living without love. With you, I've found the one thing that matters more than any throne, true love. If that's bad luck, then I welcome it. The villagers stood silent, their eyes downcast as guilt began to settle in. Nneka's heart swelled with emotion, her doubt slowly being replaced by something stronger, hope. She squeezed Chibuzor's hand, her tears flowing freely now, but they were no longer tears of sorrow. Finally, she nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'll stand by your side, Chibuzor. If you'll have me, I'll be your queen. A cheer erupted from the guards, and Mama Osioma nodded approvingly. The villagers, seeing the strength and resolve in both Nneka and Chibuzor, slowly began to murmur words of agreement. They could no longer deny what was before them, a prince who had found love in the most unexpected place, and a maiden whose heart was far richer than any royal lineage could ever offer. Chibuzor smiled, pulling Nneka into his arms. Then it's settled. You will be my queen, and we'll show the world that love, not wealth or status, is the greatest treasure. And so, Nneka, once an outcast, became the queen of the most powerful kingdom in the land. The people, who had once whispered cruel things about her, now saw her for who she truly was, a woman of strength, kindness, and unwavering love. Together, she and Chibuzor ruled the kingdom, and their love became the stuff of legends, proving that sometimes, the truest riches are found in the humblest of hearts. Moral lessons. 1. True love goes beyond wealth and status. Prince Chibuzor found genuine love in Nneka, not because of her status or wealth, but because of her kindness and pure heart. Love should be based on character, not material things. 2. Don't judge people by appearances or social labels. The villagers labeled Nneka as bad luck without any real reason, but she turned out to be the one with the purest heart. People's worth cannot be determined by rumors or outward appearances. 3. Kindness is a powerful virtue. Nneka's kindness toward Chibuzor, even when she thought he was a poor farmer, was what won his heart. Acts of kindness, even when unnoticed, have the power to change lives. The end. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the story and want more amazing videos like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss out. Drop a like if you found this video interesting, and feel free to comment. Share with friends who might enjoy it too. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.